Martin Keown, while you were in our midst, it made me think there. We were talking about Wayne Rooney taking his Birmingham City to Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough. I'm just thinking. Two of the great legacy figures. So why has Sir Alex Ferguson's acolytes produced more successful managers than Arsene Wenger's? Do you know what I'm driving at?
I do, yeah.
From the great time that you played and the invincible team, who's gone on to any degree, any level of management? Because Sir Alex, out of that lot, have come quite a sizable number, have gone into management and are aiming to do big things.
Exactly that. I mean, it doesn't compare. It is strange, isn't it? It's whether Sir Alex Ferguson was sort of nurturing, developing people. People wanted a copy. People were inspired by his style of management. I mean, just Steve Bruce alone, I think there's over 1,000 games he's managed. So it doesn't compare. I think you had Piera, you had Gio van Bronckhorst, you've had
Tony Adams managed.
Tony Adams to
David
a lesser
Platt's
extent.
managed.
David
Paul
Platt,
Merson's managed.
Nottingham Forest, yeah. So one or two,
yeah, but it's all a mixed bag, isn't it?
But they haven't. They didn't.
Well, who's won anything?
Stick at it for long enough, did they?
Which one of Ferguson's acolytes? And I'm happy for you to trip me up on it. But which one of them has won anything meaningful?
Which one has won anything meaningful?
I don't think any of them have it.
I don't think anybody's gone on to any great things.
Brucey's won a couple of promotions from the Championship.
Yes, but in the here and now, Simon,
they produce more managers.
There are a bunch of them who are in employment trying to give it a serious tilt.
Yeah, but hold on, Alex Ferguson. Come on now, Alex Ferguson has been gone for 10 years. If we're talking about the here and now, we're talking about a group of players that are making their mark now, but specifically an example of Wayne Rooney and Michael Carrick that spent as long time playing without Ferguson as they did with him.
But Steve Bruce made it an occupation, didn't he? He was in it for such a long time.
But we're talking
Whereas
about now.
A lot of them just had a go, fleeting attempts at it.
I mean, one shining light would be Arteta, obviously.
Of course.
Coming through and now doing what he's doing.
He's won an FA Cup.
Yeah.
And now he's actually going from strength to strength. It's clearly, isn't he? He's going to be a top manager. He's got to just win the elusive Premier League trophy again, which Arsenal failed to do for the last 20 years.
It's begging the question, Martin, and one or two people are asking it. Did you ever consider management?
Well, I went to work with Arsene Wenger in 2006 as a sort of a mentor, one of the staff, and I stepped away from it. My family wanted me to help. So when your family come calling, Jim, there's nothing that's more important. They'd supported me through my career, and when you've got somebody, my mother had and still has dementia, and who cares for the carer? So the fact I have two brothers who are tremendously supportive, but I felt I couldn't be travelling backwards and forwards to London. Was a difficult situation for me. I needed to be in and around for when that call came, because if anyone's in that situation right now, they'll fully understand what position I was in, and then quickly 10 years go by. And the game of football perhaps turns its back on you, and you're not necessarily equipped. You're quickly outside of all of the methods, the training, and the way the game is. The game moves on, doesn't wait for you, the game. So that's really pretty well why I didn't go.
Was there seriously a point that football did turn its back on you? When you were considering I
think people think you're caught sort of almost the enemy when you talk in the media, and people talk with hushed voices around you when you're in certain circles, and that's something that comes as a shock. But it's just part of the territory, isn't it, when you're working within the media? That never happened with Arsene Wenger, I must say. Whenever I came into the staff room afterwards, he was very open in front of me. In fact, I didn't want him to disclose things in case the story left that room, and that maybe in some ways it might be linked to me. So, because you don't know how people work within you have to have a closed shop when you're in management. And it's amazing, it staggers me, the amount of things that creep out within football clubs. You try to nail it down, but it doesn't, it leaks out. So, when I was a player,
you'd have been conflicted then, Martin. Your players would have had permanent days off though, wouldn't they?
No, not at all. I think what you'd have is a working culture of people that are going to try and give. They'd have had a tremendous support from me, a determination, a balance to what you bring. Do
you regret? Obviously, the circumstances I had very similar with my father, so it's not a matter that anyone should take anything but serious attention to. Did you regret that you didn't go? If circumstances had been different, would you have liked? Let's rephrase it. If circumstances had been different in your life, with your mother's health, would you have liked to have done a managerial career? Would that be something that you would have felt that you would A, excelled in, and B, something you'd very much like to have done?
Maybe I want to make it an excuse, but actually it was a fact. And I can't ever. What better thing is to look back on and see the time that I was able to spend with family that are now
Of
gone.
course.
So my father's passed away now.
I'm painting
So-
a different situation.
Yeah. So no, if it was a game show tomorrow and we all had to go into a football club, then I'd be putting my hand in the air to say, let's have a go.
Yeah.
Let's see who can do it. It would be challenging. It'd be an interesting challenge. And the media, we're pretty well full time in the media anyway, analysing everybody else's stories. The thing that I miss most of all is the camaraderie in the dressing room, and actually, setting targets, going after them, fulfilling those dreams, and then, the sharing that with the fans and the players.
Yeah.
You miss all of that. Now we just talk about other people's successes.
It's true.
Which is a bit hollow.
And man, when you looked around that Arsenal dressing room, I'm always absolutely. I'm amazed at the names you played with, and the level that Arsenal got to. And I remember it. I was at Highbury on the day that you lifted the Premier League title. But when you looked around that Arsenal dressing room, did you think he could do it at the highest level as a manager? He definitely could. He might. Did you have moments like that of looking around? For example, could Bergkamp ever have done it?
Well, he did. He was coaching, wasn't he? He did best part of 10 years at Ajax. Overmars went into the game.
And out on his own.
I didn't see Dennis as being a manager, but I definitely thought he had something to offer to the game. I saw Patrick Vieira 100% as being a manager. I felt Henry could as well, if he could have ironed out things he had to deal with. I felt he could have gone on to do it.
It's
he had a
very
desire.
rare, though, isn't it, Martin? No, we don't seem to see top players becoming top managers, do we? I mean, when we talk about the top managers, I mean, Guardiola is an exception. I know you can point him out, but I don't.
Xavi, Luis
Zidane
Enrique, there's
as well.
a clutch of them.
There's a few of them, but they are.
Pep was a fantastic player, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I just qualified my statement. But if you look at the times that we've had in the Premier League and the managers that we've got, the Arteta was a good player. He wasn't a top player. He didn't play for his country. And so you look at it and say, there is a massive disconnect, isn't there, between being a top footballer that has to look after himself primarily to a person that's able to communicate as a manager to bring people with him. Klopp wasn't a top player. Wenger wasn't a top player. Mourinho wasn't a top player. And these are the guys that we look at in recent times. Conte was a good player, was a top player. I get that as well. There are, of course, exceptions to the rule. But on the whole, most managers
you're right.
don't seem to be top players. It's a
No.
very different skill set, isn't it?
It's interesting because if I'd have looked in that dressing room, I probably would have looked at someone like Lee Dixon as someone who seems solid, stable enough to take things on board, but be assertive enough to people to listen to the message that he was creating. It's a very difficult balance, isn't it? Tony Adams would have been one that you might have looked at, but then Tony had difficulties in his own life, and he had difficulty getting himself out there each day.
Was there one thing in particular, Martin, you can still tell us today that you learnt from Wenger? One thing more than anything?
Well, but I think what I'd never seen from a manager was the trust and care that I saw from that manager, and then realising the extra 10% you can get from your players when you truly love your players. Not to go too far on it, because we don't want to use the word love in a work environment. And it isn't family. It'll never be family, but it was very close to it. And he became like a footballing father to the whole group. And they sprinkled his magic. That's why I'm saying, I'm looking at Spurs now. Postecoglou, is there something magical a little bit there? He's sprinkling that belief. Belief's a massive word. And that's what Wenger brought to the team. And look, you have to have a knowledge, and you have to have an understanding of the game, and everything was full on. He did everything every single day. I'm hearing that Postecoglou doesn't do that. He glides in later in the week, but Wenger was on everything, and it's difficult to get that kind of. Yeah, but it's difficult to get that kind of respect, belief, and care for your players when you're there every moment of the week.
For sure.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.